What's up, everyone? It's Kovarks here, back on the Kovarks Sports Channel, and today we are going to be giving you our predictions for the Wisconsin Badgers in 2021. They went 4-3 last year, started the season really hot, then they had some COVID issues, and that kind of took things downhill. They still did beat their rival Minnesota in overtime, and they also beat Wake Forest in their bowl game, so there still were some good things that came from that season. And overall, they returned quite a bit this year. Their defense looks stacked as they return their top two tacklers, their leader in sacks, and their leader in interceptions. They returned their top two wide receivers, including Jake Ferguson. And then they returned Graham Mertz as well, which he was their top passer. And Jalen Berger, who was their top rusher, he also returned. So the offense, all the weapons are returning. Their top defensive performers are returning, and I still think that their record doesn't really show how good they were. They just had some COVID issues, and they played a lot of tough teams. The teams they lost to were Northwestern, Indiana, and Iowa, which the only one out of those that wasn't close was Iowa, and that was only 21 points. So at the end of the day, they still look really good. They've got a lot coming back. Jack Cohen is the only piece that isn't, but it looks like Graham Mertz will be able to replace him at the quarterback position. But either way, that still is a loss as he transferred to Notre Dame. Now, before this episode starts, I do want to say that linked down below will be the new channel I've created with my good friend Brivical. We are going to be doing a weekly college football podcast during the season. There's a trailer already on that channel if that sounds interesting to you and you like college football, which I assume everyone watching this does, because otherwise, why are you watching this? Make sure to check it out and subscribe, and yeah, we'll have the first episode coming out soon if it hasn't already. But now let's go ahead and get into the schedule for the Wisconsin Badgers. So, looking at this right here, they start off with Penn State at home, which is going to be a tough game. I know Penn State went 4-5 last year, but they won their final 4 games, and they had some opt-outs, and it was a crazy year. I still think Penn State's going to be really good. I think Wisconsin may be a little better, but it still is a 50-50 game. It could go either way. You got to remember, it's at home. All the crowds in the nation are going to be extra excited for this year because they finally get to go back to the games and see their team, especially because it's the first game of the season. The crowd will be extra loud, and it's Wisconsin. They've always got a rocking crowd. I think they'd knock off Penn State. It would be a big win. Both teams will probably be ranked to start the season. I wouldn't be surprised. Even though they did have more down years, I still think both teams will be really good. But because it's at Camp Randall, I'm going to go with Wisconsin. Then they play Eastern Michigan. That should be a pretty easy win. And then they get a bye week in the third week of the season. That is, even though it's before Notre Dame, it's still so early on. I do not think that's a good place for a bye week. So, either way, they do get some rest before going into Notre Dame. But I don't think that's going to matter as much because of the fact that it's still a 50-50 game. Notre Dame, I believe they have an easier game before Wisconsin, so it's pretty much the same thing. It's right in between. This is a complete 50-50 game. But I look over these teams. It's so close. Both teams are really good. The more I look at it, sometimes I think Wisconsin's a little better. Sometimes I think Notre Dame. But if you look back to last year, Notre Dame was the better team. I think they'll probably be the better team this year. That's kind of a maybe, though. I think that Notre Dame, they've got a lot of big games on their schedule. And just the way it worked out with my predictions, I had to kind of lean towards Notre Dame to get the records I wanted for both teams. And I was already leaning towards Notre Dame. There's not a real reason. I feel like this is more likely to be a loss for Wisconsin for whatever reason. I just have a gut feeling. And so, for those reasons, I'm going to give this one to Notre Dame. But, for you Wisconsin fans, I do think they bounce back against Michigan. It's at home. They've already established that their home site is a great place to play. Those fans are always excited. And so, I think Michigan may be around 7-5 this year, but I don't think Jim Harbaugh, I don't think he's a great coach. I don't think he's the guy at Michigan. For those reasons, I'll give this one to Wisconsin. Their next 3 games, they have Illinois on the road. I mean, you want to say it's an easy win, but the last time they played in Champaign, they lost 24-23. That was in 2019. But they also smushed Illinois last year, and Illinois is kind of in a rebuilding year. They got Brett Bielema now. But still, even though it's on the road, there's a small chance it could be close, but I don't really think so. I'll give that one to Wisconsin. And then they have Army. That's going to be a very defensive game, potentially a top 25 game. Army was really good last year. They were like in the top 25 the entire season. So it could be a really good game. It could even be an upset alert game. But once again, it's in Wisconsin, so I'm going to lead towards the Badgers, so I'll have them winning that one. And then against Purdue, I know it's on the road, but Purdue's kind of like Illinois. I don't think Jeff Brom's the guy. I mean, Illinois is rebuilding, so maybe Brett Bielema will turn it around there, but I guess kind of similar to Michigan. Purdue, they just don't have a good coach, and they've been bad the past few years. Michigan's at least been bowl eligible some years, getting to 9 or 10 wins. But I'm going to have to go with Wisconsin, even though it's on the road. They're just the much better team. And so I have the Badgers starting 6-1, probably playing their best football. They're starting to get into their rhythm. And then they take on Iowa at home on the 30th. Again, it's at home. They're going to be playing their best football. Iowa's probably the second best team in the Big Ten West, just behind Wisconsin. That's just my opinion. If this was at Iowa, honestly, I think I'd go with Iowa. It's that close. On a neutral site, kind of like Notre Dame, I'd be completely torn. But kind of similar to that Notre Dame game, my gut feeling is with Wisconsin, and the main part of that is because it's at home. So now they're at 7-1 with 4 games left, starting to hear the college football playoff rumblings. They're on a roll. This is what happened in 2019. They started 6-0. They were doing great. They were looking ahead to playing Ohio State and then the Big Ten Championship, maybe making the playoff. And then they had Illinois on the road, and Illinois was hungry for a big win. And Illinois just pulled it out. As I know a lot of people are not going to believe this, but I do think in this next game, it's on the road at Rutgers, this is a trap game. You've got Northwestern, Nebraska, Minnesota, 3 big games that you need to win to make sure that you make the Big Ten Championship. Because if it's not Iowa or Wisconsin, it's going to be one of those 3 teams that makes the championship game. You're looking ahead to the Big Ten Championship and those games, plus maybe even the playoff if you're able to go 12-1, win out, because they probably still control their own destiny at this point. I think it's very similar to that 2019 Illinois game. Rutgers is going to be hungry for a big win. They're starting it to turn it around, kind of like we thought Illinois maybe was in that game, but Lovie Smith was still fired after the 2020 campaign. But I think Rutgers gets the better of Wisconsin. Somewhere on the schedule, I feel like an upset will happen. Maybe it's against someone else later in the season, Northwestern, Nebraska, Minnesota. Or it could be Army or Penn State. Somewhere, I don't think this team's able to go 11-1 or 12-0. Just because it's kind of, like, the schedule isn't that bad. But there's so many close games. Penn State, Notre Dame, Michigan could be, Army could be, Iowa, and then Rutgers, and potentially Northwestern, and Nebraska, Minnesota. I think it catches up to them a couple times and we see a big upset here. But looking ahead, kind of like the Notre Dame to Michigan situation, I think they bounce back. They're going back home. They're able to beat Northwestern, who lost quite a bit. This isn't the same Northwestern team, so I still think they'd be able to take care of business. And then Nebraska, they should be able to beat them. If it was on the road, maybe, because that is a hard place to play. But I'm still going to go with the Badgers in that one, so they go to 9-2 before playing rival Minnesota on the road. I've seen some people say this could be an upset game. If it's not Rutgers, maybe it's Minnesota. It's on the road. Minnesota's probably a better team than Rutgers. You never know. But because it's a rivalry game, I think they'll be focused enough. I still think Wisconsin's the better team. I mean, in 2019, Wisconsin dominated, and those two teams I thought were pretty even, and it was on the road, so I'm not going to put it past Wisconsin. I feel like it's either the Minnesota game or the Rutgers game, one or the other, but because I took them to lose to Rutgers, I'm going to give them the win against Minnesota, putting their record from me at 10-2. What do you guys think about the Wisconsin Badgers in 2021 in college football? Do you think they go better than this? Do you think there's a chance to go 12-0? Do you think they do worse than this? Could maybe Iowa or even Nebraska or Minnesota make a run at the Big Ten Championship? Does Northwestern still have something in them, even though they lost so much? What do you guys think about that? Please let me know down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Make sure to check out my new podcast channel. I am very excited about that. And assuming you like college football, I think you'd like it too. So we have a trailer over there. The first episode should be coming out soon if it hasn't already. Remember, I pre-record these. Once again, I want to thank you all very much for watching this video, and I'll see you all next time. Take care. Bye.